We're ready to call to order public meeting number 133 of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission on September 4, 2014 at the Convention Center. Our first order of business today, we're going to start in a way that we don't usually, and that is with a public hearing on regulations, specifically 205 CMR 134, which are amendments to the process governing licensing of gaming vendors, primarily affecting the information and documents that gaming vendor applicants are required to provide as part of the licensing and qualification process. That's the first set of regulations. The second is 205 CMR 137, new regulations establishing the standards and requirements for certified gaming schools in Massachusetts. Both of these are important components of the Gaming Commission's business. The licensing of gaming vendors is enormously important for the ongoing business relationships between vendors and the gaming establishments and the Commission's oversight of those vendors. That is, people who have continuing relationships with the gaming establishments. Not everybody who does anything related to a gaming establishment has to be licensed, but people with ongoing business relationships do. And then the standards and requirements for certified gaming schools, of course, are enormously important as well, because that's the process for training people to take the jobs that these facilities are designed to create, and to ensuring that they have the capabilities to act in a professional and a trained manner, and also to get people from the ranks of the unemployed, people who may not have jobs now, give them the skills that they need to take advantage of these new jobs. So this is the final or semi-final part of the process of promulgating these regulations. They've been out for public comment for some period of time. We've heard the public comment, and we'll take that into account in issuing the final regulations. And under the statute, General Laws 30A, Section 2, we are required to hold a public hearing to take public comment on that topic. So that's what we're doing here today as our first item of business. We advertise this, and we have three individuals who have signed up. Mark Knutz is the first from the Division of Public Licensure. Mr. Knutz, are you here? Good morning, sir. Nice to see you again.
Good morning. My name is Mark Kmetz. I'm the Director of the Division of Professional Licensure. I'm here with Board Counsel Rachel Posey.
Morning, Ms. Posey.
We'd like to speak with you just a few short minutes on the proposed regulations of the Gaming Commission establishing standards and requirements for certified gaming schools in the Commonwealth. DPL, my agency, licenses and regulates non-degree granting private occupational schools and their sales representatives in Massachusetts. Our jurisdiction is not limited by subject matter, so today we license about 165 different schools within the state in a wide variety of occupational fields. Many occupational schools are subject to oversight both by DPL and by another state agency or professional board that regulates the industry for which the school trains students. For example, nurse aid training schools are subject to oversight by both DPL and the Department of Public Health, and plumbing and electrical schools are subject to oversight by both DPL and the respective professional licensing board. With the promulgation of these regulations, gaming schools likewise would now be subject to dual oversight by DPL and by the Gaming Commission. And I wanted to focus my comments this morning on an issue relating to this dual oversight relationship. Just a couple of other background comments on the DPL licensing process. Under the law, in order to be considered for licensure, a school first must satisfy the Office of the State Auditor that the school is financially sound. If it is, the auditor's office will set the amount of a surety that the school must provide based on the amount of tuition at risk at any given time in order to protect students from financial loss in the event that the school closes precipitously. If the auditor determines that the school is financially sound, and if the school satisfies the surety amount, then DPL reviews the school's application for licensure. This application calls for information and documentation on a wide variety of things, including the ownership and management of the school, insurance requirements, compliance with local building and fire codes, tax and employment laws, and so on. Applicants are also required to submit a closure plan in the event that they close to help ensure that students are not stranded. The DPL also will review the enrollment agreement. We are a consumer protection agency, and we want to ensure that students know what they're signing on for and are protected in the event that they don't get what they signed on for. Part of the approval process is the approval of curriculum, instructors, and equipment for the program. This takes us beyond the generic business and consumer protection aspects of the school to the underlying substance of the training program, directly affecting its quality and whether it will properly prepare students for employment in the trade or profession. In other areas where an occupational training program falls within the jurisdiction and subject matter expertise of another agency, DPL looks to that other agency for program approval. So I mentioned electricians, for instance, where the training programs are first approved by the Board of State Examiners of Electricians, and then DPL will pursue the licensing process. Training programs for students seeking to become nurse aides are first approved by the Department of Public Health, and then DPL relies on that. In short, we believe that the board or the professional agent or the agency governing the field is best equipped to determine the standards and to determine whether a program meets those standards. The Gaming Commission, the proposed regulations sets out specific standards and requirements for curriculum, instructors, and equipment at gaming schools. As drafted, the regulations appear to contemplate that DPL would determine whether the commission standards have been met by a gaming school. We believe, as I mentioned, that approval of the curriculum, instructors, and equipment should be performed by the Gaming Commission, which is the state authority with expertise in this area and a direct interest in the success of the gaming training programs. This will ensure that the requisite subject matter expertise is brought to bear and that the determinations are uniform, no matter what agency ultimately licenses the school. So I do want to thank the Gaming Commission and its council for working with DPL over the past several weeks in these regards, and we look forward to final regulations reflecting a cooperative and coordinated process whereby program approvals by the Gaming Commission and financial approval by the state auditor take place before licensure by DPL and final certification by the Gaming Commission. We believe that this best protects the public interests and promotes a properly trained workforce for the gaming industry in the Commonwealth. So I want to thank you again for your time. We're happy to answer any questions, but that's our statement this morning.
Well, thank you very much. That's very helpful. Questions or comments by commissioners?
The comment you make.
I don't know if your mic's on.
As you provided the comment today, is that incorporated in some of the draft that we have here, or is that would that leave us to have our council incorporate that?
I believe our council and your council have worked together, and I think I think the current draft does reflect the approach that we were suggesting,
right.
and
Right.
we're thankful for that.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
We started down this path a while ago. We had remember an early meeting with you, and at the time of that meeting, we were in a real quandary as to whether we wanted to get into the gaming school regulation business. It's an area that we don't have the expertise, and the thought of creating a staff to do that the cooperation we've received from DPL, this integrated approach to competencies and the combination of competencies strikes me as state government at its best, and we're very grateful for you and for the cooperative spirit you've demonstrated. I think this will work beautifully. It's a good system. We take advantage of your undoubted expertise in the things that you do so well, and bring subject matter expertise, as you've described, to the content of the curriculum, and then have your assistance in enforcing it. So I want to say thank you back to you for the cooperative collaboration you've given us.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to make one last note. You know, this is the second time. When we were transitioning racing, we also had a cooperative relationship, and I know that was took an awful lot of work on your part to kind of make that work, so I wanted to thank you for that as well.
Thank you.
And so this is another example of working collaboratively.
Team effort.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
Thanks very much.
All right, the next person who signed up is Councilor Raymond Busso. Good morning, Mr. Busso.
Sure.
Who are you, sir?
My name is George Rotundo. He's my attorney. I've been trying to contact the Gaming Commission regarding a particular issue for well over 2 months and frankly gotten no response.
Does this have to do with our regulations, sir?
No, it has to do with Mayor Rizzo being a convicted criminal and
Right.
no vetting
We-
of
now,
public
wait a minute.
officials.
Wait a
That's
minute.
Pretty much it.
Wait a minute. You were asked before you signed up whether you had something to say about the regulations.
Well,
This is limited to the regulations. That's what we're here to talk about today.
So
This
then-
is not an open public hearing at which people are invited to give their views on whatever issue strikes their mind. And so if you have something to say about the regulations, I'd be happy to hear you. If you don't have something to say about the regulations, thank you very much for coming, but I'm not prepared to hear you.
very well, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Busso.
Oh, I had something actually to present,
About the regulations?
yes.
All right. I'll hear you about the regulations.
The, not being familiar with the Gaming Commission, it was very helpful to go and read the mission statement that states very clearly that you have an unyielding commitment to participatory, transparent, and a fair process. And I assume this is part of that process. And that the value of an uncompromising commitment to the integrity of licensing and the regulatory process and strict adherence to both the letter and the spirit of that is primary in your mission statement. And that in fact, you've created an enhanced code of ethics used to vet, in this case, the process of the gaming schools and who can participate and who cannot. Is there, my question first of all is there a process by which if the scheduled meeting is not for a specific topic, that is simply an open forum? Because as you just,
There is no such process, Mr. Busso.
so anybody who has a problem with,
Mr. Busso, we're here to talk about the regulations, sir. If you have something to say about the regulations, I'd be happy to hear you. If you have something to say about the general way we run our business, MGC comments is the particular and proper forum for addressing those. Mr. Busso, that is the way to do it. This is not an open forum today. We do not run our meetings as open forums for people to come in. We do have occasions when we do that. We've done that on a number of occasions in which we've had open forums in which people could come in and sign up. This is not one of them. So thank you very much for being here today, Mr. Busso.
but you haven't answered my question.
I
Can
didn't, I'm
just
not
finish
going to
it?
answer your question, sir, because it doesn't pertain to the regulations. Now, I've made myself clear. This is to deal with the regulations. It's not to deal with our general business practices.
Don't answer it anyway.
I'm not, I simply didn't get to finish my question to you. If you don't want to answer it, that's fine. I have nothing but respect for you personally, but my question is, if a process has passed by and people did not come in for a prior meeting, either because they weren't aware or they haven't, are you saying that there really is no process for them to be able to come in and ask the questions? Because you said there is not, and then you said we do have open forums. Can you just tell me when the next open forum that would invite issues perhaps like Mr. Papalardo's to be discussed?
It was Mr. Rotundo.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes,
Your client,
yes,
right, was not Mr. Papalardo, it was Mr. Rotundo.
yes, senior
Right.
moment judge.
Right.
Is there an upcoming process by which we can say, okay, a month
Yes,
from
sir.
now or 3 months?
Yes, sir. MGC comments is the proper place to direct those. So thank you
Isn't
very
that a
much.
written process?
Mr.
Yes.
Mr. Busso, I have made it very clear that we're here today to listen to comments about the regulations. I don't know how much clearer I can make it. If you have something to say about the written regulations, the draft regulations that are in progress, I'd be delighted to hear it. Otherwise, thank you very much for coming. I'm not going to say it again.
You're just sending me, though, Your Honor.
All
a
right, we'll
mixed
be in
message.
recess for just a minute. We're prepared to resume now the 133rd meeting of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Do we have?
I take it then, Your Honor, you've just stopped me, and I'm not going to be able to even finish the question that I had for you.
Mr. Busso?
correct.
Is that,
That is correct, sir, yes.
okay, well, thank you, that's all.
We're finished. We're finished.
Okay.
All right, the next item of business is the minutes. Do we have minutes today, General Counsel Blue? Do we have minutes for today's hearing?
In your packet is the minutes of our last meeting, August 21st.
Can I ask a question? Do we want to leave open the public hearing portion and then come close it at the end of our meeting? Is that effectively what we're doing, or
Yes,
close
I
the
thought
hearing?
we'd do that in case there are any people who show up
Excellent.
late,
Good.
That
Thank
makes
you.
sense.
to deal with the regulations. All right, the minutes of the August 21st meeting are in the packet. I would move their adoption in the form that they exist there with the usual reservation of rights for correction of mechanical and typographical errors.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. The minutes are approved. All right, the next item of business is horse racing. Director Durenberger is
Commissioner
not here.
McHugh,
Right.
Commissioner Cameron and I will take that matter up for Director Durenberger.
All right, do you want to start, Council Blue?
Yes, so what you have in your packet before you is the final report from the Horse Racing Advisory Committee. And as you may recall, one of the purposes of that committee was to determine the split of the use of the funds in the Racehorse Development Fund. And you will see in the report that the Horse Racing Committee went through a long and involved process through many meetings to come to a determination of the split. This report comes before the commission. It's not for the commission to approve the split, but one of the reasons we have it before you today is because you'll note a recommendation from the committee regarding proposed regulations in the event that one of the breeds were to no longer race. We do think that there is a need for the commission to draft regulations that may perhaps hold that money in escrow for a certain amount of time if one of the breeds no longer raced in the Commonwealth. So what we're asking is for the commission today to authorize the staff to go back and create draft regulations to that effect that will then come back for the commission's review at a later date.
All right. Commissioner Cameron.
As a member of the committee, I would just like to reiterate that the 5 members of the committee worked very hard to listen to everyone, to listen to experts about this matter, to evaluate the 5 the criteria laid out in the legislation. We tried our very best to adhere to that, as well as some of the things, we looked at what some of the other states were doing as well, and we had a consensus that this was, for the Commonwealth, this was the proper split, and secondly, it was important that we thought about the fact that, and this is not part of our responsibilities to talk about an escrow, but we thought it was important. And the reason for that would be if for whatever reason one of the tracks were to go dark, there would be an incentive for someone else to possibly pick up that license and continue, that breed of racing in the Commonwealth. So as you can see, it's paragraph 5 on the 3rd page, rather numbered 5. We're looking for a 3-year, the money's to be held in escrow for 3 years, which, we look to Michigan, who has something similar. Other states actually write it into their legislation, what would happen, these kinds of, both the split number as well as any kind of an escrow. So that's the piece I think we'd need a vote on by by the members of the commission, the fact that we're recommending to the commission that that we hold those monies if, in fact, either one of our 2 tracks were to go dark.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the report itself is pretty self-explanatory. I'd be happy to answer any questions since I attended every meeting and was part of the group making this recommendation.
All right, questions?
One question. I know that the group of students who identified were doing the survey of the thoroughbred and standardbred, I guess, farms, and they had some challenges which only allowed them to maybe conduct half of the surveys.
Yeah, those challenges revolved around not being able to reach anyone at that particular farm. Now, there is a situation in racing where people travel from one state to another. The list came from the industries themselves on how many farms. And so, yeah, we were a bit disappointed, to be honest. And there was a really good faith effort made by these students, these college students. Continuous calls to try to set up an appointment to go out. We thought it was important to verify the information. Just, are these farms still in business? Do they have racehorses? How many of each breed? So that was not as helpful to us as we would have liked.
Okay. But maybe just for the record, there were a lot of desk review of other jurisdictions and examples that the committee took to come up with a recommendation.
Yeah, there was a lot of work. I know it's a limited report.
Doesn't do
It's
it
just the
justice.
highlights. Well, it's just the highlights of the work that was done, but we really, Dr. Durenberger assisted us with subject matter expertise on some best practices in other jurisdictions, in particular with the, there's a list of criteria you'll see on page 3 as well, that we'd like to look at each year in order to make sure we're looking, we're capturing every aspect of the industry and deciding whether or not the split we recommend continues to be equitable for both industries in the Commonwealth. So I think there was a lot of work and a lot of review done on what others do, and this expert, Dr. Ray, who we called in also to review all the materials. So I think the committee feels, certainly on the committee, there was one member from the standardbred industry and one member from the thoroughbred industry, and frankly, of course, they would have wanted the split to be more in favor with their constituents. But I think, like I say, everything was taken into consideration, and the committee feels strongly about the recommendations. There's a consensus here.
And just to be clear, we're not approving any of that. That's not under our purview.
Correct.
What-
It's a notification
Right.
to the Gaming Commission and the legislature.
Right.
With our,
With your decision on the split.
yes,
The-
but the piece we would seek approval for is the fact that we believe that there should be those monies put in escrow if in fact one of the two
Right.
tracks were to go dark. And I'm speaking Dr. Kochivar, who is she's the chair of the committee, the dean of the Tufts Veterinarian School,
Right.
was not able to be here today.
Right.
So what happens to this now on the piece for which we're not responsible? It goes to the legislature, and the legislature has the right to say no, and if they don't do anything, it becomes effective, or do they have to approve?
Well, and please correct me, my understanding of this is we have, if someone, either the Gaming Commission or the legislature could suggest something different, we could go back as a committee and take a look, but actually it would be the committee that has the final say on what that split should be.
Okay.
Yep,
So
that's correct. It's up to the committee.
Both the legislature and the gaming commission are advisors or commentators on what the committee has done.
Yes, that's right.
All right. And then as to the escrow piece of this recommendation, we do have a role, and we have to approve that. And we're approving it in principle now, subject to crafting regulations that will implement it.
Correct.
Okay. All right, any discussion about that piece?
No, I think it's very reasonable. It's, I'm imagining that the regulations would be very straightforward to draft and implement. So I think it's a great recommendation.
And there is precedent
Right.
for this.
Doing this kind of thing?
Yes.
Yes, in other jurisdictions. And we are in the process of reviewing and revising the racing regulations in toto. So we would put this in as part of it, so you'll get to see it as part of the overall regulatory scheme.
Right.
All right. Any further discussion on that piece of it?
Thanks to Commissioner Cameron for all of her time and input.
Yes.
She's been our horse racing expert since we opened the door.
I wouldn't say expert, Commissioner, but certainly a willing
Right there,
participant.
yeah, right, certainly. And this is a good piece of work, and this is a good safety valve to have for whatever happens down the line. So do I hear a motion to implement it?
Yes, I would move that this commission take the recommendations as presented and discussed today to establish an escrow for monies coming to the Racehorse Development Fund in case it would be needed.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it unanimously, and the regulation drafting process then can begin when
That's
it's
correct.
appropriate to do so. Yeah, all right, thank you. All right, that finishes item 4 on the agenda. Item 5 is Investigations and Enforcement Bureau, Director Wells. And Mr. Grossman.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
The first thing I have on the agenda this morning is the first draft of internal control regulations, which we are putting out for initial public comment. The yeoman's work on this set of regulations was done by Todd Grossman, here with me this morning, and Bruce Band, who unfortunately, due to circumstances beyond his control, cannot be here this morning. Every effort was made to provide licensees with flexibility regarding their back-of-the-house operations in these regulations, while also ensuring the integrity of the operations on the floor by having standardized protocols. We are certainly interested in any comments as we proceed to the next draft of the regulations by any interested party, including applicants, licensees, commissioners, and the public. As examples of areas in which we would welcome input, I would point to the retention schedule for records. You know, does it make sense? Is it reasonable? We also have in the regulations throughout the document regulations involving coin and token use in machines. Now, we expect there to be little, if any, use of this type of machine. We'd like to know if that's correct, and what are the expectations in the industry. There may be circumstances where a casino may want to go a little retro, have some coin slot operations. Is that going to happen, and would that impact the regulations? I'd also point to the credentialing system as a security measure. Will that comport with the operational plans in the casino? So those are the kinds of things we're looking for comments on. I will note for the commission that we will need to reconcile any provisions here with our racing regulations, and we will be consulting with Director Durenberger on that as we go forward in the process. With me is Attorney Grossman. I'd like to thank him and Bruce Band for all their work on this draft. It was a somewhat arduous process, and if he has any comments, I welcome him to comment to the commission. We're available for questions or comments, and on some of the specifics, Bruce Band may be more helpful on the floor regulations and why some of the regulations are written how they are written. He should be back in the early part of next week, so the commissioners will be available, and we can also discuss that further when this goes out for the next round of public comment.
All right, thank you. Mr. Grossman, do you have any comments? This is obviously, once again, represents a great deal of thoughtful work. We've all had a chance to look at drafts as they were progressing, and this draft represents a great deal of conversation and highly detailed work. It's really a fine product. And I'd welcome any comments you have if you have any. The work may speak for itself, but you're welcome to speak for it.
No, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. It is, as Director Wells mentioned, just a very rough draft at this point, so we'd certainly welcome input, but with the understanding that this is not the final product, this is not what we're recommending be adopted at this point. It's just the beginning of the conversation as to getting a good set of internal controls in place.
I'd be interested, are there casinos out there now that have gone retro and are using coins?
I think they may have a section, from what
see.
Mr. Band tells me. There may be an appeal to that, and we wanted to put it in the regulations in case the licensees wanted to do that. There may be a market for that because it's entertaining and can be fun for the customer, but
Okay.
in most part, I would
You'd
not
like
expect.
to hear the coins drop? Is
Right.
that the-
So we'll see how that goes. That's up for discussion, but we'll see how the plans progress. Okay.
All right, anything further on that? So all we're doing today is putting those regulations out for public comment, which is the first step in the approval process. Is that, and we don't need a vote to do that, or do we?
I don't believe so.
All right. So they'll go out for public comment. We'll establish a process and a mechanism for the comments, and then set a hearing date like we had this morning.
Correct.
Well, not exactly like we had this morning.
Well, that's probably not like that. But, if that, so the commission is prepared to move these on the path to the public hearing at this point?
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So we will file the notices and all the necessary paperwork?
Right.
Okay.
Great. Good.
All right, thank you.
It's an
Thank you
important
very
step
much.
forward.
Okay. The next thing I have on the agenda this morning are the results of the suitability investigation for Mary Christine Gay. She was determined to be a qualifier for the Blue Tarp Redevelopment LLC licensee, as she was appointed as a compensated director of MGM Resorts International. Ms. Gay has held that position as a member of the board of directors since February of 2014. She attended Towson University of Maryland and received a Bachelor in Science and Finance in 1989. She also attended the University of Maryland abroad in the UK, although not obtaining a degree there. But she also attended Loyola University in Maryland, received an MS, a Master's of Science in Finance degree in 1997. She holds no active non-gaming or gaming licenses currently. She She's presently a trustee of the Sovereign School in Sereno Park, Maryland, and a member of the advisory board for Network 2000, Inc. in Baltimore, Maryland. Ms. Gay spent her career at Legg Mason Capital Management from June of 1989 to June of 2013, reaching the level of Senior Vice President and Portfolio Manager. She submitted all required forms to the IEB, and our investigators conducted our standard rigorous background check for applicant and licensee qualifiers, did her employment history, criminal record, education, directorship and stockholder interests, civil litigation, bankruptcies, property ownership, political contributions, references, and media coverage. Investigators also conducted a financial responsibility evaluation. All the investigative materials came back positive. She demonstrated by clear and convincing evidence that she is suitable for licensure in Massachusetts to investigators, and therefore the IEB is recommending that this commission find her suitable. We're not recommending any conditions on that suitability at this time.
All right, thank you. And thank you for the careful background report, as usual. Comments? Questions?
After reading the report, I see no reason we shouldn't find her suitable.
All right, do we need a vote for that?
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll hear a motion.
So I would move that this commission find Mary Christine Gay suitable as a qualifier with the MGM Corporation.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's all I have this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, the next item is Workforce Supplier and Diversity Development. Director Griffin. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm here to give you a general update on my work and also to go over my work plan. So as you know, my work focuses on three main areas: creating systems to ensure diversity, ensuring a ready and trained workforce so that Massachusetts residents are ready to work at the casinos, and maximizing the economic development impact, ensuring that small Massachusetts businesses have the opportunities to be suppliers at a casino. So given that, I wanted to just talk about some recent work and then go over the work plan. So I continue to work with Penn National regarding their hiring and contracting with vendors during construction. Penn National Gaming has authorized the contractor, Turner Construction, to award about $33 million of contracts. And of that, 28% has gone to MBE and WBE vendors, which is far higher than the goals that they set initially, 4% MBE and 7% WBE. We have worked closely with them. Our vendor task force has provided connections to suppliers, helped them with their vendor fairs and that sort of thing. One challenge that we are working with Penn National on is their vendor their veteran business enterprise, the VBE. That continues to be a challenge. I have recently connected Turner Construction and Penn National to members of our vendor advisory task force who work closely with veterans. But I do want to mention that this is a newer area, and many veterans are not yet certified as a VBE. So We are.
Is that are those the only quote-unquote veterans that qualify under our standards? In other words, suppose somebody is a veteran but has not gone through the qualification process. Is he or she somebody who doesn't count in the statistics?
Well, we have tried to make it as easy as possible. Director Acosta has created a process to easily be recognized as a veteran by the Mass Gaming Commission. We also recognize VetBiz, which is the government certification for, for contracts. But I think it remains an area of some challenge.
But I guess my question is definitional. If somebody is in fact a veteran, and she has a small business, say a linen supply business or something, and wants to register,
Yes.
but has not gone through the official state or federal veteran registration business qualification process, can he or she come to the commission directly and say, I'm a veteran, here's my discharge papers and proof of service? I want to get that preference.
Absolutely. And we encourage them to do so. They show their DD 214.
Right.
And become recognized by the commission for the
Right.
purposes of doing business with a casino or being employed.
And how are we doing our independent outreach, or are we relying on our terrific staff of advisors and partners to do that for us?
Both. We're working with Veterans Affairs to plan and the U.S. Small Business Administration to plan an event in November that is focused on veterans and veteran businesses. So we're tying into some existing events where we will bring information about casino opportunities.
Mm-hmm. I was just thinking, and I'm sure you've already thought of it, but just, for example, sending notice of that fair to every VFW hall or post in the Commonwealth, and those kinds of getting some kind of an email listing that would broadcast information to VFW. Aren't the only ones. There's a group of others, and just having them, so if we had something, we could hit a button and every one of them gets it. Those kinds of things. But I'm sure those kinds of things are in the works.
Right. We recognize that this is an area that needs more focused attention.
Right.
And I'd be glad to sit down with you and get your ideas.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, to follow up on Director Griffin's comments, there's no state certification process. The only federal identification process is one for a veteran to use if they want to do business with the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, which, again, may be a limited population. But Director Acosta came up with a simple way for us to count a veteran business. We've had meetings with Secretary Nee. We've encouraged all of our licensees or a licensee designee to reach out to every community has a Veterans Affairs officer. Those are folks who probably know everybody who's returned from conflict, or not even the most recent one, but certainly has a business in town. And there's active other sources that I think we're trying to tap into, but I think we're working also towards an event in the middle of November. Demonstrating the SBA's products, inviting our licensees to talk about the opportunities they're going to have. But I think to Jill's credit and David's credit, jumping out ahead and finding a way for us to count those businesses amongst the MBE and WB and VBE participation that we've asked our licensees to hit has been a huge step forward, but there's more to be done. It's a whole new field for everybody out there.
Yeah, and I recognize, and it's terrific that we've taken that leading role. And I've just been struggling, as I know we all have, at thinking about how to get the word out to groups that are not part of some federally or state recognized body and that requires some extra work on our part. And it is a pool of typically highly disciplined people who are highly trained in organizational behavior. They have all kinds of skills. They've gotten great training in the military in various disciplines, and it's a great labor pool. And they often need a hand. So I'm not saying anything we don't all already recognize, but I'm glad we're making this effort.
And on your point about the labor pool, though, Penn and Turner have seen some relatively positive success in engaging veterans on the construction workforce side.
Right.
Not the business side, but
Yeah,
participating in the workforce side.
Right.
that's right, Commissioner Stebbins. The construction workforce, 13% minority, 4% female, and 10% veterans. So on the workforce side, they've seen some.
And is that through their efforts, or is that us, or both?
Well, I have
Our
to say,
pride, certainly.
they have
Right.
worked hard,
Right.
both Penn National and Turner
Right.
Construction,
Right.
and worked closely with the unions as well.
Right, great. Okay, thank you.
So, we continue to work with Penn National in terms of planning for their upcoming opening. In fact, in mid-September, they plan a career center where they will start to provide information about their operations positions for area residents. At the end of the month, we'll work together regarding a vendor fair. This time, this vendor fair will be focused on operations and some of their needs during operations. They also have asked us to participate in job information sessions and train the trainer sessions with the career centers, which will happen at the beginning of October. So we've been pretty busy. Additionally, at the end of August, our vendor advisory team met with MGM Springfield. And MGM, this was the first meeting between our vendor advisory team and MGM. MGM highlighted the project itself, their supplier needs, their typical company spend, and their historic commitment to diversity, as well as their diversity goals for the Springfield project. MGM has held several vendor fairs in Springfield and has worked closely with the Springfield Chamber of Commerce about outreach to their businesses. And they've analyzed their need based on the initial registration of businesses in Springfield and the surrounding communities who have registered on their website. So this is interesting. They have expressed a concern about the number of minority, women, and disadvantaged businesses in the Western Massachusetts area who are actually certified certified by the state.
I'm sorry, who expressed that concern? MGM or the vendor advisory group?
MGM has expressed that
Okay.
concern in terms of the number of minority and women
Yes.
businesses who are certified.
Was the advisory group helpful in trying to identify businesses that they know of in that regard from that area or elsewhere?
Well, the So on Monday, one of our vendor advisory team members is Reggie Nunnally from the Supplier Diversity Office. And there is a certification fair on Monday, and I'll be attending that. That's in Springfield with the Springfield Redevelopment Authority. We will work also with Springfield Chamber for another event in November, perhaps, and maybe December as well. So, so the issue is not so much identifying businesses, which the vendor group will continue to do, but ensuring that those businesses are certified and that they have the capacity to actually meet the needs of MGM.
Right.
Chairman Crosby and I recently met with a policy group on tradeswomen's issues, which is a group composed of union officials, and they've been meeting for the last 8 or so years regarding increasing diversity hiring efforts in construction projects, specifically focusing on women. And I plan to come back to you on October 9th, and I've invited them to come and present their best practices, that they've just released. I think it will be really interesting. So,
We'll look forward to that.
yeah, great. So I also continue to work with the community colleges, the statewide consortium, and they are very active, working on further workforce development plans. The Western Mass contingent is working with MGM and the Regional Employment Board to make sure that their workforce development plans are up to date and just what the MGM needs. They're also planning efforts to support the hospitality industry in Western Mass and in the other regions as well. And these efforts are generally to support things like training for restaurants, hotels, and entertainment venues. So if you don't mind, I'd like to go to my work plan and talk a little bit about the work moving forward. So the Gantt chart before you represents general activities on my work plan from now. I think it goes up to 2017. The vertical yellow line represents the present day, and the activities on the left of the yellow line represent activities that have already been completed. For example, the development of the training school licensing regulations that I was involved with, formation of the vendor advisory group, and the Clean Technology Fair in December of 2013. One activity, and then it's further divided by region. So for example, under the slot parlor in Plainville, you can see that I've been working on diversity plans, both for design and construction and for operations. One activity that I would like to highlight is the small business capacity building grant that we issued for small businesses in Plainville. We received a lack of responses for that, a grant of $20,000, and we'll be making some changes to the grant application moving forward. And I'd like to invite Commissioner Stebbins to join in if he has any comments as well.
I mean, I've been watching Jill assemble her work plan and just kind of demonstrating all of her activities as she goes through the rest of the year and obviously beyond. It's great when you got job security out through 2017, but yes, to pick up on just a couple of points, you know, the grant program that we had designed to help communities build capacity as small business vendors. I think what we realized is that each region is unique and has different needs. MGM is obviously concerned about the opportunity to contract with local minority and women-owned businesses, and we may be able to refine the program to allow the local chamber and the organization, in partnership with our licensee, to apply to us for that, even though it's a modest amount of money, but to hopefully address an issue that's of particular concern to them based on where they're located. You know, we originally had the grant program for assisting with financing. That may not be the need in where we potentially, in the foreseeable future, have allocated the money for the slots parlor in the Region A and Region B. So we're going to be reissuing that grant submission RFP and hopefully, again, give some more flexibility to the local organizations to apply to us for money to help solve their local need. We're also working with Mass Convention Center Authority and Massport to address issues and kind of also learn from their best practices when it comes to minority and women-owned business enterprise and VBE participation in a lot of their construction projects. Also talking with them about organizing a discussion and panel around financing for small business, having our licensees come in and talk about what their payment plans are, so financing institutions and financing organizations can have some idea of how they can loan to small businesses who might be in line to get a large vending contract. So, you know, I think Jill, Director Griffin, Jill continues to do a great job. I'm glad she had a chance to talk about what her activities are as we move ahead with this process, and that it was interesting, this vendor advisory group is talking with each licensee. They seem to want to work with different components of the vendor advisory team. I think MGM is going to quickly jump in and start working with the groups that are focused around identifying businesses for them, as opposed to maybe the technical assistance side and the financing piece. So, again, and this extends to Penn and Turner and to MGM, that they haven't quite got the reception from business folks in Massachusetts and other jurisdictions. So they've been pleasantly surprised by our offer to help, and we give them Jill, and we certainly connect them with Director Acosta, so small businesses understand the licensing requirements as well.
So to, I guess, close out my report, I would say you'll notice that much of my time has been spent on working with licensees on diversity reports, making sure that those are transparent, putting those reports out for public comment. But in the future, I anticipate moving that transparency onto reporting on how the licensees are doing. For example, a diversity report in June talking about how licensees are doing in terms of hiring, and putting that up on our website. We have, as Commissioner Stebbins mentioned, we have this emerging effort with the labor unions to work on increasing diversity within the construction period, especially for the upcoming Category 1 casinos. So those are some of my outward-looking future efforts.
That's all very impressive. Are there questions, comments? It strikes me that the kind of detailed analysis and outreach and planning and organizing that you're doing is really a key to the promise of this entire legislation. It's one of its main components, obviously, a jobs piece of legislation. And we have said from the outset that we're interested in reaching out to the underemployed, the unemployed, to minorities, as well as to established businesses to participate in this job creation process. We often hear that we can't find them, or we just we've done a lot of effort to find people, and we just don't find any qualified, you fill in the blank. And that's because, in the main, the outreach hasn't been precise enough. And so this kind of effort that you're undertaking is really important to make this thing work. The Career Training Institute, the union participation, the devising our own system for finding veterans is what we need to do. And the plans you are bringing to us and the examples of success you're bringing to us are really a key ingredient of the success of the overall thing. So this is a great report, and I thank you for the energy you're putting into this. It was exactly what I, as one commissioner, I think I share, everybody shares views that we hoped would come out of this. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Very informative.
Thank you.
All right. The next item of business is the Legal Division, General Counsel Blue.
Could we take a brief break? If he's take
Surely. You're going to take a 5-10-minute recess?
just 10 minutes.
10-minute recess. All right, surely.
Thank you.
General Counsel Blue, you'll stand by for 10 minutes?
Tell them anymore.
All right, we're ready to resume with Public Meeting 133. And we will pick up right where we left off with General Counsel Blue.
Commissioners, in your packet today, you have 3 small business impact statements, one for the capital investment regulations, which we filed by emergency some time ago, the surveillance regulations, and the search and seizure regulations. The purpose of the small business impact statements is to allow us to proceed through the formal process for each of these regulations. We have a hearing on the regs tentatively scheduled for October 7th. So we will be trying to file these small business impact statements along with the first draft of the regs with the Secretary of the Commonwealth tomorrow. So we're just asking your approval on these statements and the approval to go ahead and file.
All right, any questions? Counsel Holmes has been working on these as well, as usual. And they seem to me to be in order. Any questions that anybody has?
No.
These are really as you said, the formality that helps small businesses understand whether and to what extent these kinds of regulations or any regulations will have an impact on them, and gives small businesses a chance through this group to comment on things that could be streamlined for small business purposes. So it's an important step in the process. All right, do I hear a motion?
I move that the commission approve, do you want to take these all as a group?
Yes, that'd be fine.
I move that the commission approve the drafted small business impact statements relative to regulations around capital investment, surveillance of gaming establishment, and regulatory monitoring and inspections.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor then, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it unanimously.
Thank you.
And we thank you, and those now are on their way to the public hearing. Great, thank you very much.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the last item on our agenda is a Region A update. Do you want to say anything, Mr. Zamba, or you're not listed as a speaker, but you can. Yes, sir. Something useful to say.
So, at our recent commission meeting, we discussed the steps that we'll be taking during evaluation week or week plus. Obviously, there are a lot of questions about what we might be doing on a particular day, and I think what we talked about at our last meeting is that it's almost impossible for us to predict with certainty what will happen on a particular day based on the length of the presentations, the complexity of any material error, and the ability of the applicants to respond to any conditions that are put forward. But over the next day or so, we will have conversations with the applicants to try to further hone the plan in the best of circumstances, and then deal with any issues that come up that would cause any further delays. Obviously, I think we're all trying to achieve a decision as soon as we possibly can, but not at the expense of making sure that our decisions are the best ones possible. So we're going to proceed in that regard.
That's really helpful, and you've done a great deal of work with the applicants and with this process, as have you, General Counsel Blue. And so I know we're all looking forward to beginning next week. I just thought I'd spend a minute just at a high level running through a couple of thoughts that I had that I think people ought to be aware of, and then I welcome any thoughts that my colleagues have here as well. The steps we've outlined in some detail, and we had those steps outlined at a meeting, but at a very high level, they involve the presentations, one by each of the commissioners. We have 5 areas. Each one of us will do one, and then together we'll do another. We'll respond to claims of factual error that we may make during the presentation there, and there's a process for getting those claims to us. We'll ultimately talk about, and then as a group, recommend and put out for consideration by the applicants conditions that we would want satisfied if we granted them the license, and get responses to those conditions. Now, that's an important part of the process because, and one that will involve some real discussion, as all of this will, because the applicants in many cases won't know what the conditions are until they hear them during the course of that process. And they may need, depending on their complexity, a little time to consult with each other and with others as to how to respond to the commissions we're recommending. The entire commission has to approve those recommended conditions, so that as we proceed with our individual reports, we may make recommendations, but it's not until all of us have had a chance to chew them over that they go to the applicants. Then come the deliberations when we finish that process, and the deliberations will begin with a discussion of the weight to be given different factors in the evaluation process. There is a tendency sometimes, I think, to take a look at the ratings that are given in the course of our presentations and start a counting process. That's not what this is about. We need to focus and agree on, and I think we'll agree on fairly quickly, what the weight to be given the various factors is. But it's important for people to understand that it is not a mechanical process. It's a judgment and a qualitative process, and the discussion about that qualitative process will take place right here in the process, and then ultimately a decision. This is going to be a real public discussion. I'm not sure what my colleagues are going to say, and I'm sure they're not sure what I'm going to say, because we haven't discussed it. All this takes place in a public setting, and the purpose of the discussion is to understand, to weigh, and to evaluate the judgments, the opinions, the thoughts, the analysis put into the various parts of these very complex very complex applications by each of the commissioners and the consultants on whom the commissioners are relying. So it's a process of bringing what we've been doing individually together in a forum in which some real discussions are going to occur. The discussions we had in the slots parlor applications are a model for this. This is the same kind of discussion that we had there. These applications and the issues here are more complex. They're bigger. They have bigger numbers attached to them. They've got bigger numbers of jobs, but the model is the same. And it's important to understand that this means that before the week ends, commissioners who start out with one opinion and who, on some subject, may very well wind up with a different opinion after listening to the colleagues and putting things in context and taking out of their own isolated, and I use that in a non-pejorative sense, isolated analysis of the particular part of the application assigned to them, putting that in a larger context may change an opinion and may therefore start out in a position that they don't wind up in. So it's important to let this and understand that this debate is going to play out and it is organic in its outcome. At the end of all that, there will be a decision. We will meet next week, beginning on Monday. We may take a break, probably will take a break at some point during the week to give the applicants time to consider the conditions that the commission approves and get back to us with written responses, and written responses will be required, and those responses will be posted on our website. So we'll take a break at some point, and then we will resume. We posted meetings into the following week if it's necessary. We'll make announcements here as to when we're next going to get together so that nobody misses a beat, and there will be information on the website as to how we're going to proceed. But at the end of that, there will be a decision. It could be a decision, and we're looking forward to a decision on a license award. It is conceivable that we'll make a decision to one or the other. It's conceivable we have the power to make a decision to neither. It's conceivable that we make a decision that we need to get even further information, although we define the parameters of what that information is. So a number of outcomes are conceivable and possible, but a decision that narrows exactly what we're looking at will come at the end of the process that we're beginning next week, and it will come before midweek of the following week. And we're going to work very hard to make that happen. So that's how I see it. I'm looking forward to it beginning. I know that the staff is looking forward to it beginning. And a great deal of energy has gone into this, and we have two very competitive applicants and applications, and the process of working our way through that to ultimately realize for the people of Massachusetts the goals that this legislation was designed to reach is going to be both fascinating, energizing, and I hope to the public a useful exercise. So that's how I see it at a very high level for next week. I welcome comments from others, if there are any.
To speak for myself, I look forward to the process. I know how much work we've each put into this, as well as our staff and consultants, and I know we're ready to start these, have our presentations and start the deliberations. So I think you accurately, as much as we can, predict how the process will go. And it's, I just look forward to starting next week.
All right.
I would echo those comments and just say, you know, I'm pleased by the fact that we had competition. We have good competition in this region, and I'm looking forward to the process next week. This is not how every other jurisdiction carries it out. Oftentimes, it's behind closed doors. The fact that this is a public process with public discussion for everybody to weigh in and watch us conduct our business is exciting for me.
for all of us, I think.
For
I don't think
everybody.
anybody does it quite this way, but it is a good way. I felt very good about the process after we came out of the slots parlor discussions, and I'm anticipating a really good discussion and process here as well.
Same here. I look forward to that too. I think I'm really looking forward and have been struggling a little bit in my own section to try to summarize as best as possible what is a very lengthy application. That is true for on every section, I'm sure, but this has certainly been the case. The numbers are bigger, and that means a lot of additional things to consider. Which is why having the flexibility on conditions and the time allotment is going to be, in my opinion, very important, and thus hard to predict the exact timing. But the flexibility is embedded here. I think it's been well put forward by the staff and analyzed a number of ways, which is where we arrive, and we really, I'm really looking forward to how that comes to fruition.
I just want to add, as I was listening to my colleagues, I think what people are going to be, I hope will be impressed or encouraged to hear is comments and discussion around issues that were raised to us by residents, both through the surrounding community hearing process and the host community hearing process, as well as the hundreds, if not thousands, of comments we get over our comments line. I think there will be a good deal of that as well.
Yes, those were an important and remain an important source of topics to think about as we all have been proceeding. So I think I join you in thinking that those will be reflected in our discussions as we proceed. All right, any further thoughts? Well, we'll be here at 9 o'clock next Monday and ready to go, and we look forward to seeing all of you here. You may be joined by a few others, maybe not, but in any event, we'll be here at 9 next Monday and look forward to seeing you. I think that is all of the business that we have. Director Day, is there anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, then I'd hear and entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it unanimously. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, we're going to close the line.
Yes, thank you, thank you. I'd entertain now a motion to close the hearing on the regulations with which we began.
Do you want to ask if there's any further comments from the public present?
Not really.
It's saying none.
I think they were
Are there any,
signed up.
are there any further comments on the regulations? No, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'd entertain a motion
Move to close the hearing?
All right, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The hearing on the regulations is closed. Thank you.